So, good afternoon. Welcome to Design Dialogues hosted by Fublis. This is your host Bhavya, and today we have the pleasure of speaking with Carlo Bonanno from the studio Paghera Eco Project Group, SRL in Italy. Just to give a brief introduction about your studio, Paghera is a distinct architecture and landscape design firm with rich heritage that spans over 150 years. The firm has deep roots in the study and transformation of natural environments, blending landscape architecture with visionary design. With expertise passed down through 5 generations, the Paghera's founders have dedicated themselves to understanding and harnessing the beauty of nature. So, thank you so much for joining us today, Carlo.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
So, before starting the questions, I would like to inform you that this interview will be published on the website of Fublis. So, sign up with the Fublis website and you'll get the access to watch this interview. So, shall we proceed with the questions?
Absolutely.
So, first question. Paghera has a deep rooted history in landscape architecture and the environmental recovery, seamlessly integrating nature with the built environment. So, how do you approach the balance between preserving natural ecosystems and introducing architecture intervention, especially in large scale developments?
It's the hardest question actually, because we always try to integrate what is a architecture. So we work with architecture studio, of course, for the big project, and try to blend their project into the existing landscape. So try to merge what is architecture, what is the, let's say, new building or integration of a new building or restoration into the nature, trying to respect as much as possible the space and rebalance it in somehow. We have a very strong experience a long time ago with Burle Marx. He was a very famous landscape designer in Brazil. And his approach was always to, let's say, copy where you are, the nature around you, the surrounding nature of the forest or the natural atmosphere, and try to reintegrate it. So our aim is to re-give the authenticity, let's say, of the place after even a big integration. And of course, where we have a project of hotel, resorts, or let's say public places, this is a big challenge, and it's a funniest part of the job that we need to do.
Amazing. So, talking about the project Six Senses Antognolla, it is designed to create a harmonious dialogue with the surrounding landscape, carefully shaped by the Paghera's expertise. So, could you elaborate on the specific strategies used to seamlessly integrate the built environment with the natural surrounding while preserving the site's ecological integrity?
Yes, in this project, we are in Umbria, which is central region of Italy, and it will be one of the biggest hotel and resorts in Italy because it's spread around 400 hectares with the golf courses. And the aim also of the brand, which is Six Senses Hotel Operator, and they always want to create project with eco-friendly approach. So all the design, all the material, all the soil movement, all the drainage water, recollected water, everything has to be recycled. So site works, site plans, and a natural water reserve, everything has to be implemented in a way that will bring again the atmosphere and the eco resort. So there is no limits in terms of flora and fauna. We need to just integrate what we have. It's a beautiful hills. There are beautiful hills around with the autochthon plants that we are just extending somehow. And so the material itself also in terms of paving surface, all local, coming from the site construction. And less much also the plantation are coming from the nearby region in a way that, of course, the quantity, it's a story because it's a big project. So we'll be divided by times and by years. And this will allow to create, let's say, organization production nursery. There is also the aim to have inside a nursery, or in any case, to create the recycle for mulching. So all the, let's say, maintenance program after the implementation. And this is really important for the brand and for the owner.
So, the restored medieval castle is a defining feature of the resort. So, how did you balance the preservation of the historical authenticity with the introduction of the contemporary architecture elements to create a luxurious yet culturally respectful experience for the visitors?
It's a balance between the history and the modern architecture integration. And in Italy, it's very complicated because we have different authorities that are correctly pay attention to the what is the restoration, what is the new, and you need to be very keen about the visibility of the intervention in this kind of building. So the area of the castle, it has a medieval castle. We didn't implement anything physical that it was not there. So we started from the past, we started from the history of the place and how it was used, how is the flow of the people, pedestrian or let's say by horses at that time, and don't touch it. So just respect the place it is. And with a very, let's say, timid integration of plants, because of the way it will look so artificial. And this is not the aim that we want to give. But of course, there are some technical elements that need to be taken into consideration. So even technical equipment that needs to be hidden, or parking area and so ever. So it's a balance. But in this case, the atmosphere of the place and the position of the hill, because it's raised on top of this hill, give us a very good opportunity. And in terms of consumption also of water and irrigation, we really work on the, let's say, using of flowering rather than lawn. And this again will eventually, let's say, prevent cost and running operational water for the resorts.
The history of your studio, with over 150 years of architectural history, your studio has witnessed the transformation of landscape architecture from traditional garden design to large-scale urban ecological projects. So, how has the firm's design philosophy evolved over time, and what principles have remained constant throughout the generations?
Everything of this family starts from the production of plants in the early or the mid of 18th century. Basically, they start with the production of wine plants and fruit plants, and then was ornamental plants. Then architect Paghera, Gianfranco Paghera, in the 70s of the last century, made his work in a completely different way. He started to analyze the new request of the market, that it was a design and build service rather than just a plantation, let's say a nursery production. So he integrated, one of the first in Italy actually, to integrate the design of the landscape in a human scale, so in a normal residential hotel scale, because there were some landscaper, of course, before, but very few. It was in that time it was a really limited, let's say, work. And he saw a different way of approaching the market, a different way of supporting the client, and he created something that it wasn't not existing anymore. And so from the material itself, he worked on the scenographic approach, so trying to see the place as a total atmosphere, so not only the elements itself, like a single elements, that unfortunately who built or let's say produce plants just looking at the plants. But the landscape design is to see lighting, material elements, levels, and so on. So the studio starts from there, and of course it starts with the first project in Italy, and then start over to the foreign countries, and we touch more than 50 countries around the world with the project in each of them. We had also some office around, and the philosophy brings us always to, let's say, copy-paste nature. So don't be too much human-based. The plants always need to be shaped naturally. So we don't use, let's say, topiary elements or human, let's say, cutting style. We always try to leave the plants as they are, and the mix of them in the place always with the natural approach, because it's the only way, for our point of view, to give a real sustainable maintenance in the future for the client itself.
So talking about another resort, the Tavan Jagral Resort, it introduces a modern luxury experience while paying homage to the Mongolian culture, especially talking through the gear pods and the greenhouse restaurant shaped like a gear. So how did you approach the challenge of honoring traditional Mongolian architecture while ensuring a contemporary and a high-end hospitality experience for the people of the visitors?
This was a project together with the Studio Apostoli. It's an architect and also very expert into the spa and wellness project. And the aim of the project was from the very beginning, total integration with the landscape, with the existing landscape. We are just nearby Ulaanbaatar, the capital, and we are in this open valley. The climate conditions are challenging, but there was an existing river, and the river we just enhance a little bit to create like a lake and a riverside logic of distribution of the villa. in a way that it looks not too much artificial. It looks really integrated in the place. And in terms of architecture, together with the studio and of course the engineering, there was a lot of inspiration from the history of the place, which doesn't have a strong architectural, let's say, language, but there are many. But always there is no big building in that history of the place. So always trying to create a more open field resorts, so single elements distributed in the area, to prevent the request of the client and the, let's say, buyer that want to have a place outside of the city where they feel really into the wild, into the nature of their place. So it doesn't have to look really modern or really, let's say, artificial, but very, very natural. Really strong connection with the local plants and view. We have a beautiful view from the windows, and so also the lighting works. So natural light, artificial light, inside, outside was really deeply studied to align the villa or the building itself in a way that it looks really integrated. And in the water, it is one of the key features, which is there all day long, let's say. So we are just using the recycled water for circulation. So there is no waste of any kind of water. And now the project is going to a good feeling, no? In a good way. So we love it.
Mongolia has a very extreme climate with cold winters and warm summers, and the resort is built on a very natural slope. So, what were the biggest architectural engineering challenges in adapting the villas, hotels, and the gear pods to these environmental conditions while maintaining the comfort and sustainability at the same time?
Yes, challenge for many things. One was also engineering for thermal isolation, energy consumption, which it was part of the team, because we always like to work in a big team of companies, everybody for their own capacity, let's say, and experience. And in our part, so the sustainable planting and the material, reflection of the sun, shadow area. So everything was very careful study to create a integrated, seamless atmosphere with the surrounding area. Because again, it's a very big valley and there is no other construction. And so it was very easy to create like a highland closed all around, and it looks really artificial. So we just blend and, let's say, sacrifice a little bit of the space on the perimeter to blend the landscape and the softscape together. And the water was a really strong issue because there is a river, but it's very limited. So we study carefully the quantity of them, how to use it, and how to circulate it and filtrate it naturally with plants.
Focus on the eco-smart modular housing and the advanced irrigation technology highlights the fusion of technology and nature. So, how do you see the digital tools such as AI, remote sensing, and other smart systems shaping the future of landscape and architecture design?
There are, let's say, a very strong technical approach and significant changes in the last 5-10 years. Of course, AI is more recent, but the logic of AI, it was already integrated by the technicians some years ago. Simply using the meteo, so all the, let's say, organization of the irrigation timing, very important, because we understand the quantity of requests from each plants and the mix of them. And also the programming of the maintenance. It's where it take in consideration the algorithm of AI. And during the design, even the mix of the plants, because they trying to create a seamless and nice feature with the bloom of different plants nearby. So in a way that it looks really nice, not just a special season, mostly, let's say, long period. Of course, winter time, it's more complicated in some region, but still it has to be a nice atmosphere. Otherwise, it's just a flat land. And so the simulation and the artificial intelligence we're using to understand during the year how the plants will create a nice atmosphere and how they will grow, because our work is based by it's not static. No, when you start it today, and then the plants will grow, and the material will change, the soil will be stabilized, everything will change by time. And this is a very hard challenge to understand from the day one how it looks like, and in 10 years and 20 years how it will look like. So this kind of simulation are really useful to understand the next, let's say, evolution of a place.
So, talking about another project that is the private palace garden in Doha. So, it's described as one of the journey of life rather than just a landscape project. So, how did you approach translating intangible emotions such as nostalgia, renewable, and the connection to the heritage into tangible spatial elements within the garden design?
That was a private project for a very special client. And he told us his story of life and the family and the passion and the love that they have for some specific plants, fruity plants, most of. And so we, with them, we understand that there is a journey. It's not just a place to look at, but they want to be integrated. They want to be part of the place because it was quite significant dimension of the garden space, private space. And so we took different steps, let's say, or important phase of the life of the client, and then translate it into a design. So from when he was a child, and so a kind of atmosphere, a kind of planting, the perfume that it reminds him something from the past, and then let's say step by step bring him to what it will be, the new generation, and then the use of the place. Always link with the water. So water was the key elements that bring us to this journey. So there was a channel, a lake starting point, and then a channel that it goes through this journey of life. And then circle again, because life is a circle. Basically, water it was a circle, circularity of the water and the circularity of this place. There was a lot of feng shui approach in this project. And so even the wind was part of the project very strongly because there are open field where the wind can go. And this also, in terms of energy, it brings new energy, new positive approach, and then some area more protected. All these, let's say, green room or rooms are designed and built to be independent. You can take as a journey or you can take as a special place where you want with your family and your friends. So there are places for, let's say, restoration or regeneration of yourself, and then something very funny with the outdoor screen, and then the swimming pool area, and so on and so on. So it was a journey with the client, not just us. And this is something interesting for us.
So, talking about the use of the native plants linked to the Sheikh's grandmother adds to a very deeply personal touch in that project. So, how did you balance the cultural authenticity and the ecological sustainability while selecting and incorporating these plants into the design?
Yeah, as always, we study a lot the local nature. So in the area in Qatar, unfortunately, there is no strong in historical experience about the plantation and nursery. But in the last 10 to 20 years, they built a very important market on that. And so you have some data where you can start from. And there are native plants that, okay, they are working. You can see in the desert and you can see in many other places. And then the family of native plants that can work together. So we had a local architect, local landscape architect and agronomist that together with us create a list of varieties that reminds for the client something interesting. So there was something emotionally from that point, and then technically, because even the soil is very different. The hardest part of our job is that each project has a micro condition, a different kind of soil, different kind of wind and exposition and so on. So we need to study really carefully the local condition. Locally means there, not local around Qatar, because Qatar is one thing, Doha is another thing, Alcor is another thing. And that was really interesting because the local partner which we are working with, they suggest us a trip. Also, we've been to the desert. So we took some samples of plants and similar from the desert. And then also about the loan, which was very important part of the project because they love to see the green color. It was something very important for them in terms of culture as well. And so the selection of that was quite challenging.
Now, moving to the last question for the day. So, looking beyond individual project that your studio does, how do you see the role of architecture evolving in the next decade, especially in terms of its emotional, environmental, and the cultural impact on the way we live and the interact with our surroundings?
We strongly believe that landscape is not just outside, and now a landscape is architecture. There's biophilic architecture. So everything is related to the wellness of people. So how you feel it, your well-being. So each design, which is a private home or resorts or a big places, needs to take in consideration the integration of these two elements, which are very, very important because they needs to be aligned with each other, and the connection in between is important. So We love to work nowadays with neuroscience, with architects that study biophilic, with architects that study feng shui or Eastern projects. So we try to blend different experience and different point of view in a way to create a more holistic and multidisciplinary approach, which is, again, not just wine items, but combines as many as items possible. And we saw that the request of the client or the person that will use this place, which cannot be the same person because it's an office building or a hotel or an hospital or a public park, the investor, it doesn't mean that is the owner of the place or even who's going to use the place. So it's very important starting from the inside to outside and understand the needs of the people. Sometimes it's a color, sometimes it's a plant, sometimes it's a shape, sometimes it's a connection with the window. It depends. But our aim is to integrate as much as possible different point of view and different technical approach, scientifically approach. So always measuring the data. For example, we are using a sensor, a quality air sensor inside of the building or the house in a way to understand how the interaction of the oxygenation in a place change and how this is important for school, for example, to have a good oxygenation, or in a hospital to have a positive view, so an outdoor view to the place, or into the office building to create not just a single position, let's say, or a desk, but create common areas that can feel people comfortable. All of them are not just one plant, more or less. It's an integration of elements, as much as possible, natural elements, even the furniture itself.
So, Carlo, that was the last question for the day. Thank you so much for giving your precious time. It was a pleasure to have you here. And don't forget to sign up with the Fublis website. Thank you so much, Carlo.
Thank you for your time. It was a pleasure for us. Thank you.